Welcome to EKU Then and Now. I'm EKU President Doug Whitlock. This series focuses on prominent EKU faculty, staff, and alumni who have had a meaningful involvement at Eastern during its history of more than 100 years. We ask our guests to comment on some of the vivid memories they have of EKU during their time on campus. I'm pleased today to be interviewing the legendary Carl Hurley, America's funniest professor. Carl grew up in rural Laurel County, Kentucky, and came to EKU as an undergraduate in the early 60s. He received bachelor's and master's degrees from EKU and a doctorate of education from the University of Missouri in 1971. He was a faculty member at EKU from 1974 through 1982, serving as professor of industrial education and coordinator of secondary education. He left the campus in 1982 to become a highly successful and nationally known speaker and entertainer. Carl, welcome back to campus.
It's always good to be here. It's always just coming home when I'm back at Eastern.
I remember, because I was working for J.C. Powell at the time that you left in 1982, and yes. It was you requested a leave of absence because there was something you wanted to try.
Yeah.
And you've been trying it now for a long time.
28 years. Eastern was very kind to me, and that was the toughest decision I've ever made, I believe, was to leave a full professorship with tenure in a position that I loved and a school that I love. It was very tough, but Eastern was kind enough to say, you can go out for a year and try your wings. And if you want to come back at the end of that year, we'll find a place for you. And that was, you couldn't ask for more than that.
No, and of course we've enjoyed your success and enjoyed your programs over the years, but we kind of regretted it.
Well,
when you left.
Well, as I've said many times, I never left Eastern. I just expanded my classroom.
Yeah.
So,
but let's go back to when you came here as a freshman. You know, I've heard you tell that story many times, but was Eastern just always your pick, or did you have some deciding to do?
From the time that I realized I was going to give it a try, you know, I had to try to go. I wanted to go to college so bad, and Eastern was the only one that I had in mind. I graduated Hazel Green High School in Laurel County in 1960, and then 3 days later, I was enrolled here at Eastern, and it was just a dream. I mean, I didn't think I was going to be able to go, but I wanted to. From elementary school, I can remember thinking I wanted to go to college. And Saturday I'd go to town. We would sometimes get groceries and a few things, and I'd see kids from Eastern, the students with their sweaters on that said EKU or Eastern, and they were proud, and I wanted to be a part of them. And so I was lucky enough to get here, and it was my first choice. It was a good choice.
Now, did you start out as an industrial arts major, or
Yes. You know, at that time, Eastern was nationally recognized, and still is, but for industrial arts. Now, we don't teach industrial arts now. It's changed into technology education, but at that time, it was probably the best program in the nation. And I had an industrial arts class in high school. I only had one, had engineering drawing, and our teacher in high school was an Eastern graduate in industrial arts course. And one day he loaded his class on a school bus and brought us down here 50 miles, that's quite a trip, to visit EKU's industrial arts department. And they showed us around, and I decided that's what I was going to major in. And it's been a good one, been good for me.
Of course, Mr. Ralph Whalen would have been the chair.
He was.
At the time. What are some of the other names that were on the faculty at that time? John Rowlett was already here.
John Rowlett was there, and Tom Myers, Clyde Kraft he was out then and came back later.
That would have been very, very early in Clyde's career.
Yeah, Clyde, he was a great chair. He followed Ralph Whalen, and Ralph Whalen was, you know, he really built the department, and then Clyde took it over when it was in a period of growth, and he did a great job, provided great leadership for it. And That was my first choice to major in industrial arts and follow it right on through.
Well, talking about thinking you were getting killed, I seem like I remember a story, and on a list of questions that Paul Blanchard had suggested, he asked me to have you reflect a little bit on Bob Martin, and Bob Martin figures into this story. But as I recall, there was something about a blueprint that needed copying.
I'll never forget that. I was probably about a sophomore, and that's when, of course, President O'Donnell was president. Then in the fall term, that's when President Martin came, and the building started. Of course, you were here. You were at the time,
Well, I was a lot younger than you. I came the next year.
Yeah, right.
We
were in the same class.
Yeah.
I couldn't have a night class. I mean, I've had night classes, but you had to be careful going to a night class, because on the way back, when it's dark, you might fall in a hole where they started a new building that day. Mm-hmm. Well, all these new buildings are going up, and we had to have blueprints and white prints and to look at. And so we had a blueprint machine, or a white print, doesn't make any difference. It's a huge one. And we had a set of prints that we wanted to copy. And that thing was long, and we only had this one set. I really didn't know much about how to run that machine. And I got that copy of that print started in that machine, and it got twisted around this big tube that it's in there. It's light, and it got so messed up we couldn't even find the end of it. Yeah. It was wrinkled up, and he told me ahead of time, "You mess this up and you are dead." And I thought I was. We finally had to take the machine apart to get the thing out, and take irons, like you iron clothes, and iron that print out. We finally got it done, but oh goodness.
I bet you broke John Rowlett asking you to do anything.
He never asked me to make any more prints for him.
Well, when in this process, Carl, did you decide you wanted to be an educator?
When I was growing up there on the banks of the Rockcastle River, I had lots of good teachers at Mount Zion Elementary, little one-room school, and there at Hazel Green School, Hazel Green High, and I had a lot of good teachers, and they had a lot of influence on me. And I don't know, it's just something about it that I just decided when I was in high school that I was going to be a teacher. That was my choice. I was going to teach school. I was going to teach industrial arts. Didn't know how I was going to go to school. We didn't hear about student loans. There were no student loans. And I applied to Eastern, got accepted. Had $50 saved up. That was it.
Of course, that was the biggest part of a year's tuition at that time.
Well, $37.50 was the tuition for summer school. But there's a professor here on campus that grew up in my neighborhood. My family, his family, all knew each other. A fellow by the name of Jack Taylor. Jack called me about a week before I graduated from high school. He said, "I know you're wanting to come to Eastern." He knew I had to work. He said, "We've got a job for you." He was manager of the college dairy farm, and he gave me a job. And that's how I got to start out here.